Hi, I'm Teresa Coenen with Stitch and Tree Quilts, and this is row 2 of our quilt, COVID Friends Tribute Quilt. Let's take a look at Block 5, Hero Love. What I've written about are the heroes that have come to the forefront throughout this pandemic, and the ones that come most quickly to mind are the heroes in the medical profession. But there are a lot of other heroes, and I've talked about that in the writing here. And so one of the things that we've seen a lot on TV and on the websites and all over the place is this symbol of love that's made with the hand. And you show that all the time, where people are showing love to family members or to people that they just want to show how much they appreciate them by showing them some love. So I used a heart block to represent the hero love. And you can use 2 different fabrics, or you can, if you choose to, you could embroider the name of a hero that you want to list on your block itself. There have been a lot of really good suggestions as we've worked on our quilt along. On the pattern, it talks about the half square triangles that you have to cut. When I cut my half square triangles and quarter square triangles, I like to use a Marty Michelle square up tool that has very clear 1/8 inch markings. It makes it easy to get those 7/8 inch markings. And then I do like to use any Marty Michelle half square because it allows me to engineer the corners on those half square units so that I don't have to worry about overlapping them 3/8 of an inch. You do not have to use those, but it makes it easier to do the work. Let's take a look at fabric for Block 5, Hero Love. The fabric itself would lend itself to being a red because it's a heart, but that doesn't necessarily have to be true. You could use any color. For example, if your hero is the local grocery store and the local grocery store's color is blue, you might make your heart be a blue heart. You might also choose to embroider the name of a hero on the block itself. The fabric for the block does not lend itself very well to a directional fabric because the half square triangles will be on the bias, and the rectangle, unless you've turned it and you're cutting it on the bias, it will be going the opposite direction. So I would caution you from using a directional fabric for this part of your block. You can use 2 separate fabrics. One of the quilters in our quilt along chose to have a different fabric for the center than what she did for the top and the bottom. This is for my bright quilt. In my bright quilt, I have a background fabric that is directional, and I purposefully change the direction frequently with the blocks because I know ultimately in my quilt, I'm not going to be able to have everything going the right direction. This is my deep and rich batik. This is my deep and rich blender. And this isn't a directional fabric, it's kind of an all over print, but it definitely, you can see here that I've got the letters going sideways versus straight up and down, but it doesn't seem to matter with this particular block. And then this is my bright batik with a black background. So you can see I've chosen a variety of fabrics, and about anything can work for whatever you want to have to represent your hero. So I like to take the opportunity to lay the units together on a mat to make sure I know that I've got things going the direction I want. I have a directional background, so it gives me an opportunity to change that directional background around however I might like it. So let's take a look at the pattern. Step 1 has you sewing the right-hand side of this unit together first. So you'll fold that over like a sandwich, matching this 90-degree angle. And I have an engineered corner here, but if I didn't, that would have overlapped about 3/8 of an inch. And I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch down this right-hand side. Once you have stitched it on that right-hand side, you have to press it to the outside. Do that by setting the seam first with a hot iron, not with steam. opening that seam. And again, just set the iron there for 5 seconds or 5 bananas. And now that seam is set and ready to go to the outside. I'm ready to add the second seam. So the second half of step 1, I would lay the other triangle there. Again, flip it like a sandwich, matching that right angle. And I will stitch down this side. So I'm actually going to flip it over and put it through my machine this direction. People ask me, why would I do that? Why would I flip it over and go from the other side? My option would be to put it into my machine this way. And if I do that, I'm going to be starting out by pushing that seam, and I want to go with the seam. So I'll get a better, cleaner 1/4 inch out of that if I go, so I'm stitching towards the seam. For step 2, you're going to take the large rectangle and you're going to attach the background half square triangles to the sides of it. If you've engineered your corners, it's very easy to see how that fits on. If you have corners that aren't engineered and they exceed by 3/8 of an inch on both sides, the magic way to match that up is the pinch method. I pinch my fabric in half and I can see my center. And I can pinch my half square in half. I can see my center, and I can lay those 2 centers together, pin them if I like, and stitch a 1/4 inch on each end of that rectangle. Step 2 calls for you to press to the outside on those half square triangles. So again, you set the seam with your iron and then press it to the outside, just holding the iron in place for 5 seconds. Again, I do not like to use steam with my iron or a damp iron or spray, simply because that adds an element of stretch into my unit. Turn my unit, set it, flip it open, and press. I've been asked before why I turn the unit to iron both sides over here on this side, and that is so that I iron both sides exactly in the same way. If I were to press this unit this way and press this unit that way, I might not apply the same pressure, and I want both sides of my unit to look identical. In step 3, I take the unit from step 1 and I apply it to the unit from step 2. I can use the pinch method if necessary to find the center of the units so that I make sure that this is in the center of the unit. And I am going to drop a pin in place as I stitch that. I like to stitch this unit with the unit from step 1 on top so I can see the 1/4 inch place where I need to stitch through so that I get that nice sharp points there. If I had flipped it over and stitched it from this side, I can't see where that 1/4 inch seam allowance comes in. But if I stitch it from this side, I can see that seam allowance. So I'm going to run that through my machine at 1/4 of an inch. The instructions say in step 3 to press that seam open because it alleviates some of the bulk here on these corners. I have found that either way works. You can press the seam open or you can press the seam towards the center. So for this unit, I'm going to press the seam towards the center. Again, I set the seam with my iron, turn and press, holding for 5 seconds. And you can see that by paying attention to that 1/4 inch, by watching that as I move it through my machine, I've got a nice sharp point there. Step 4, the final step, has you putting the large half square triangle onto the bottom of the unit. And again, you can find your centers using the pinch method. And pinch the block unit itself. Match those centers. Drop a pin in place. And once again, if you have engineered corners like I do, they will match up evenly on those sides. If not, they'll overlap approximately 3/8 of an inch. And you'll stitch down that side 1/4 of an inch. Pressing instructions on step 4 indicate that you are to press it towards the bottom, the outside of the unit. So again, you'll set that seam, turn, and press, holding in place for 5 seconds. There is my block 4 Hero Love. Once again, you see that you have these edges. They look a little odd, but remember, you're going to be stitching through those at 1/4 of an inch, and then your heart will show up quite nicely. If you have any questions along the way, give me a call, send me an email, do a post on our group Facebook page, and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can to answer any questions that you might have. I thank you for joining us and have a blessed day.